Hello there, it's Paul here and welcome everyone. This video I've turned what I call a triangle vase, or it could also be called a three-sided vase, and I'll have a chat at the end. Following on from the last couple of videos with the vases, the vase in the vase and the coloured vase with all the stripes to still show all the wood on it. If you haven't seen those, then do look back on my previous two videos. This time I'm going to do what I call the triangle vase or the three-sided vase. On the lathe I've got another piece of wood almost identical to the last project I did, so I'm going to true this up first of all. I will stick a tenon on one end, but then the actual main turning to do the three sides is still going to be done between centres, and I will run through how I do that. If you've got one of these off-centre chucks, then you should be able to do it on there as well. I do have thoughts on another video coming up with another vase, which is what I will use this one for, so I will be running through on how to use this. So I've trued up the blank just roughly, and I've put a tenon on the end so that this can be placed in the chuck when I hollow out the centre. To do the three sides, I need to do this between centres. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to draw a circle on each end with the compass. So I'll put that circle on both ends. And then what I'll do to make a starting point on both ends, I need to make sure that both ends are in the same place. So going to put a marker on here, just using the pencil on the tool rest. Just got a straight line down there. I can class that as the top then, and do the same for this end, which will be there. Now with the compass set at the same distance, you can go round about, it's slightly out, but you can do two increments each way, which will roughly give you the thirds, and those will be my turn between centre points. And just to make sure that they all seat properly, just going to use the live centre itself just to mark those holes. So now both ends should be turning identical, and I can then go from this top point first of all on each end. That will really give me quite a big off centre. Now, the other thing I'm going to do as well is I'm going to angle my tool rest a bit, because I want to taper down from the top to make the bottom narrower. I'll just turn the lathe speed down to start with. So that's spinning up at about 1000 RPM. Now some people get quite worried about doing this off centre like this, but it's no real different from when I trued up the original piece to start with, which was a triangular piece of wood, and I turned it to round. So there's going to be a lot of cutting, so that initially when I start cutting, I'm just going to start cutting on this top edge, and the more material I start getting down further, then it becomes a thicker cut. It's actually fairly smooth, just a little bit of tear out on there. So that's the first side done, and I now need to sand this up. It's going to probably need a combination of being spun up like this, and a case of probably a fair bit of manual sanding. That's the first side turned and sanded. What I need to do now is, where I've gone from the top one, I can rotate this round to the next one, and this will now give me a cut off on this side. Some tool marks there which hopefully are going to sand out, and I also got tear out on there. So that's the second side done now, and I can now sand this up the same way as I did the first side. This was the first side I've done. There's the second side I've done, all sanded up. It's actually quite smooth. There is a little bit of tear out in places, and I've just swapped these around to the third points just to then do this final piece here. That's the third side done, and I can just now go off and get that sanded up. This is what I've got now, so you can see where I've gone through on the centres there. do have some tool marks on the very top here. The good thing about this is you can see by the distances on each of these of how far I've taken it down. The other thing you can see is how even you are as to how straight these edges are, and I've got a little bit of a bulge there. The first thing I want to do is take off this finger bit at the top here, and then I'm going to use a 16mm drill bit to drill then down as far as it will go, which will take me down to about here, and I can just hollow out this part here. I think what I want to do is then I'm going to try and shape this and then have a base on it. I now need to make sure this goes centrally in the chuck, so I will just bring up the live center first of all to make sure that it centers itself. I've finished with the hollowing inside, and it's been sanded back to 600. Now the inside of the bottom finishes around about this mark here, so it's about 10mm above where I'll put this line here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going, with this normally orientated, I'm just going to turn some form of a shape in the bottom here and then have a base. Sanded off the bottom there. I can't really do too much about the burn marks, they've gone too deep into the wood from when I was piling it off. Just put my name on the bottom there, and it's actually come up quite nice. But I'm going to finish this off with an oil, so I do prefer applying oils with a brush if possible, but to save getting the brush messed up, just going to pour some in the middle there, run that around. Fun little project. I've done one of these about 18 months ago where I didn't actually video it. If I've got a picture, I'll put one up on the side here. It was just basically the vase, but I decided that it looked just too plain with just the main body of the vase, so I decided, right, I'll create some form of a stem and a foot on it, so it just makes that look a little bit different. Used tung oil for a finish on this for the first time in a very, very long time. I mean, I bought the tin that I've got here for probably 4 or 5 years ago and hardly ever used it. Tung oil is it's pure natural tung oil, and so there's no solvents or anything in it, so no drying agents, so therefore it can take longer to cure. This has been left 24 hours and I mean it's not moist or anything. I mean, I suspect it's still slowly curing. I've only given it the one coat and I am actually quite pleased the way that that's come up on there, so probably not going to give it any extra coats. This piece was actually just, as you see, just turned between centres for the 3 centre points. The only problem you might experience there is where you actually mark your centre points, they need to be precisely at the precise angles, otherwise the whole thing could be off a little bit. Got another video coming up after this one, which is a 4-sided vase. For that one I've actually turned on the Axminster eccentric spiralling chuck, so please do look out for the next video when that comes along, because it will show you how this is actually used. It can still be done between centres, but with this it just gives you that bit better control and more accuracy over the piece. But if you've done anything like this, please do let me know. I just think it's something totally different with the 3 sides, and like I say, with that foot on there, I just think it sort of just elevates the piece a little bit more. Be interested to see your thoughts. Thanks a lot for watching.